Good evening, everyone. Thank you once again for joining us on this special iDollar webinar. Just to start us off, we'd like to introduce the team. So my name is Winfrida Makuru. I'm the head of marketing, brand, and communications.
My name is Azan, and I'm the fund investment analyst.
My name is Francis Samki. I am the fund accountant.
My name is Samia. I'm the head of client relations.
My name is Aidan Musbilo. I'm executive officer.
So we're excited to have everyone. Just like to point out that as we go through the presentation, please feel free to put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll respond to them at the end of the session. Please note there will also be a frequently asked questions. So if we address your question in that part, we will not read it. However, if you need clarification, please feel free to ask us again, as I mentioned, in the chat. That being said, I would like to welcome Francis to take us through. Welcome.
Thank you, Winnie. So I'll be taking us through the iDollar presentation. So first, we'd like to discuss about iTrust Finance, just as an introduction, especially for those who are not aware of our company. So iTrust Finance has multiple business lines, such as fund management, brokerage, and advisory. So coming to our milestones, iTrust Finance began is still a microfinance type 2 institution. We incorporated in 2013, and we're basically doing Islamic lending. We also issued sukuks, 8 sukuks, up to 2023. So coming to 2023 is when we rebranded to iTrust Finance. It's also when we started our other business lines, such as fund management, brokerage, and advisory. We had a rights issue then for AfriPrice Investment Company, where we raised 10 billion shillings. And in 2024, we had another rights issue for DCB Bank, and we also raised 10 billion shillings. We also started a regional brokerage trading desk and had another assignment for the Samia bond, where we helped raise 323 billion. So in 2024 is when we started our 5 funds, our 5 TZS funds. And coming to 2025, we have also started our 6th fund, the iDollar fund. We also issued an additional sukuk and also did a roadshow for the London Stock Exchange. So now coming to our 5 funds, we have 5 TZS funds. The first one is iCash Fund. This is a money market fund. It's meant for people who prefer low risk and short-term investments. And our second fund is iSave Fund, a fixed income fund, mainly for long-term investors who prefer low risk. And iGrowth Fund is our balanced fund. It's a medium risk fund for people who prefer long-term investment as well. And iIncome Fund is another fixed income fund for low-risk people who prefer long-term investment. Iman Fund is another fund of ours, which is also a balanced fund, but it's a Sharia-compliant fund. So our 5 funds have been performing very well. As you can see, the graphs below, each fund has its performance against its own benchmark. So iCash Fund is now at 30 billion and the NAV is 107.1182. iSafe Fund is at 9 billion. The NAV is 107.4896. These are the prices as of yesterday. Our income fund is at 12.7 billion. The NAV is 108.03. All these funds have been performing very well, as you can see how they are performing against their benchmarks. iGrowth Fund is at 61B. The NAV is now 127.69. And Iman Fund is at 16.3 billion. The NAV is 133.3311. Yes, so now we can go straight to our iDollar. iDollar is basically a USD money market fund. It's meant for people who have USD holdings, USD balances, who would like to invest for a short to medium term period. The minimum investment is $1,000 initially, but adding your investment, you can invest minimum $100. There's no entry fee and there is no exit fee as well. To withdraw your money, it takes 5 working days, but there is a lock-in period for 3 months from your initial investment. So the benchmark is the weighted average USD fixed deposit rate according to Tanzanian banks. There is also a tax advantage that the redemptions are exempt from withholding and income tax. So as you can see, our other parties over there, the regulator, CNSA, our custodian is CRDB. We have a legal advisor, which is Vertex, and the auditor is PwC. Yes, so maybe you can say why invest in iDollar fund? The multiple reasons. First, there is diversification of dollar holdings. The dollar fund can give you a good investment option, especially for those with USD balances. Can give you a very good option, especially due to its competitive returns. This is because the fund invests in multiple securities which have high yielding, and also the fact that there's multiple securities gives it portfolio diversification. Because the fund does not invest in just one asset, but in multiple assets. So the diversification can help you minimize risk, basically. Liquidity, as I said, the redemption takes 5 working days. So it's easy for an investor to access their money. Tax advantage, there are no income tax or withholding tax on redemption and on your valuation. Also the investor safety net, because we're regulated by CNSA and we abide by all the regulations. We also have a custodian who is basically safekeeping all the investors' balances and assets. There is also professional management in the sense that over here we have analysts and experts who analyze the market properly so as to know where to invest the investors' money accordingly. Yeah. So coming to the investments, the iDollar fund can invest in multiple securities, such as fixed deposits, call deposits, corporate bonds, and other assets as approved by CNSA. On this side, you can see the graph showing the USD fixed deposit rates over the years, according to data from DOT. So as you can see, the rates have been steadily increasing, which can be a good indication for iDollar fund, showing that the yields can improve over time as well. Yes, so coming to compliance, due to the regulations from DOT regarding foreign exchange, all the fees of the fund shall be billed in Tanzanian shillings, meaning management fee, custody fees, and any other fees have to be billed in Tanzanian shillings. Also, unit purchases can only come from a USD bank account, meaning whoever wants to invest in the dollar fund will need to have a USD bank account. Also, subscriptions and redemptions are only in USD, meaning a person cannot invest in TZS and cannot redeem in TZS, only in USD. Compliance with CMSA regulations, will be complying with the regulations regarding transparency and the investor reports as well. Yes, so currently we're in an IPO. The dates, as you can see, we opened our IPO on 8th of July. It will run for 3 weeks and will close next week on the 25th of July. From then, there will be a cool-off period of 10 working days, and the fund, investors can add to the investment, or new investors can come in from 12th of August, which is also when we'll be publishing our results of the IPO. So since the fund has a locking period, there'll be a locking period for those who invested in the IPO. There'll be a locking period of 3 months. So from 23rd October is when they can be able to redeem their investments. But whoever comes in after the IPO, the locking period will only run from the date of their first investment, meaning 90 days after is when they'll be able to redeem the investment. Yeah, so how to invest for those who are not our clients. You can open an iTrust account through our website. It's very simple and easy to fill in your details. So after you open your account, you receive a client code, meaning a client unique number from iTrust, and you also receive the iDollar fund USD bank account details. From there, you can transfer money to that iDollar bank account, and you can share the proof of payment with our customer service email. From there, you receive a confirmation email from iTrust that you have received your investment amount. Yes, so now we can come to our FAQs, the questions which are normally asked from investors. First one is, how do I benefit from investing in the funds? So an investor can benefit because once they join the fund, they'll join at a certain price, NAV, unit price, and that price can appreciate over time. So as the price appreciates, that means the value of your units will also be growing. So the investors' holdings will also grow over time. Is iDollar the right investment fund for me? iDollar fund is best suited for those who have USD income streams and those who are holding USD to meet obligations. So those who have earning in USD or have USD balances, this is the right fund for them, as it can help them to grow the USD balances. Can I move from one of the TZS funds to iDollar or vice versa? So no, you cannot move from one of the TZS funds like iCash, iGrowth. You cannot move to iDollar, and you can also not move from iDollar to one of our TZS funds. Is there a minimum balance of my investments to be maintained in the fund? So to remain in the fund, each client must have a minimum balance of $1,000. But the investors will always have the option to redeem their investments fully if they wish to do so. So how can I monitor the performance of my investments? Investors can monitor the investments through monthly statements. We'll be sending monthly statements. And also online account access. We have an online portal where investors can log in and see how their investments are performing. How does the fund manage risk? The fund has multiple methods in this diversification because the fund will be investing in multiple assets. There's also careful selection of investments. As I said, we have an expert team which can help to analyze the market and carefully select which investments the fund can make. And also other risk management techniques can be used. How is the fund's performance measured? The fund's performance, each fund has its own benchmark, but for iDollar, the benchmark is average fixed deposit rates from Tanzanian banks. What is the minimum redemption amount? So an investor can only withdraw a minimum of $100 at a time. Yes. So what will iDollar fund invest in? The iDollar fund will invest in money market instruments like call and fixed deposits, and also fixed income instruments like corporate bonds. Can I send TZS and iTrust converts it into dollars for me to invest in iDollar? So iDollar can only receive USD from investors and also pay back any redemption in USD. We cannot receive TZS because iTrust is not licensed to do any conversion for clients. Are there any penalties, blackout periods for early withdrawals? So as I said, the fund has 90 days locking period from your initial investments, and we cannot process any early withdrawals until the locking period is complete. Should I convert my TZS to USD so I can invest in the dollar fund? No, we should not do so due to foreign exchange risk, and also you'll be facing conversion costs. We also have a TZS funds which can also give you competitive returns. Yes, thank you. That was that's all of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Francis. We would like to open up the chat for any questions. I believe we have tried to target as many questions that have been reached out to, that have been asked to us through social media, our customer service. So if you still have any burning questions, please feel free to ask. Oh, great. We have one that says, what advantages does a person have in investing now during IPO stage rather than waiting till October to invest?
So basically, investing now means you will start the initial stage of the fund. You'll be starting at the lowest price, which is 100, because once the IPO is over, the unit price will start increasing steadily, or changing steadily. So that means at a higher price, you'll be getting less units. So the IPO is a good stage to begin in because you can get a large number of units by investing now. Yeah.
Thank you, Francis. We also have another question, which is, what is the benchmark we expect? Is it 4 or 4.5%?
Yeah, so as with our other funds, funds in general, well, we cannot give a fixed return in per se, but we do have a prospective range, which is around 4 to 5% per annum, which we expect.
Thank you. Nathan also asks, has there been an analysis of the difference between investing in TZ shillings funds to the USD fund that you can share? Or mostly the gains will be as a result of conversion to USD, assuming USD strengthens against the TZ shilling.
So I can say there hasn't been an analysis. Right now, the TZS funds we have invest in TZS instruments, and our USD fund will invest in USD instruments. So yeah, and the part on the gains is a result of conversion. No, yeah, welcome.
So ideally, one of your gains can come from the depreciation of the T shillings. But we also hope that the assets that we can pick up would probably be high yielding assets, as high as possible for dollar denominated currency. As far as your returns in TZS are concerned, you could probably have higher returns in TZS, which could range from 12 to 15 up to 20% for funds that are balanced as opposed to funds that are fixed income, which would probably yield 15%. If you're looking at a dollar return of about 4.5 to 5%, and you consider a depreciation of the Tanzanian shillings, you could still possibly yield higher on your TZS assets as opposed to dollars. So again, like we mentioned, that we would not like to encourage people to exchange their TZS to the dollars just so they can invest in dollars, because we do have TZS funds that could give you higher yields than the US dollar could.
Yeah, I think if I can add on to what the team has mentioned, there's a couple of difference between the two currencies, and the return gap is due to the differential between them, either interest rate differential or inflation differential. So the Tanzanian shilling, if it depreciates in any meaningful way, let's say on average in the past, we have seen something in the average of 6 to 7% in some years less, some years a little bit more, but generally at that level. So you when you invest in dollars, you have to consider the fact that in Tanzanian shilling terms, your returns will be higher because you also benefit from any periodic devaluations. The shilling can periodically also be stable. So sometimes you have higher returns in, let's say, our iCash, which is a money market fund in Tanzanian shillings. So that is what creates some discrepancies between the two returns when compared in a single currency. So if you compare in US dollars, you'll have to take your Tanzanian shillings and basically theoretically convert them at the exchange rate at that time and see what your return was. Or else you take your dollar return and then you convert it to shilling terms and see to compare shilling and dollars. Now, the other advantage I want to mention is even though your returns are 4.5%, 5% range, or even 5.5%, there are a couple of things which could make the returns higher. One fact is you need to consider the fact that returns on the funds are not taxable. So redemptions are not taxable. So you get that return as a net, as a final. While if you had instruments, you sometimes have to pay withholding tax, sometimes you have to pay other kind of taxes. So please consider the tax efficiency of the funds. The second element you need to consider is this is not just a dollar fund. It's dollar denominated, but it's actually a multi-currency fund. So it is allowed to invest some portion. If the exchange rate is stable, it can invest some portion in a higher yielding Tanzanian shilling asset. So as a fund manager, it is our role to see how much of the portfolio could we invest in other currencies and what kind of hedging instruments we can use to make sure that we can get the dollars when we require them and we can maintain the fund in dollar terms. So the returns could be higher, but we don't actually like to mention returns because we need to produce those returns for you to see. We have dependent on market conditions as we go forward, and it's important that what we are giving you is just an indicative. It is not really. We could perform higher than this, but we don't want to set expectations before we actually deliver them.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think you have slightly answered this, but just in case they need clarification, Ali asks, does the fund operate in a similar way to iCash fund?
Yes, I think the two funds are just differing in terms of their currency denomination. One is in shilling, one is in dollars, and the securities they invest in. One predominantly and fully in Tanzanian shilling assets, which is iCash. The other one predominantly in dollar-denominated assets, which means dollar-denominated bonds, dollar-denominated fixed deposits, and any other fixed income security. But both of them are liquid money market funds. It's just the biggest difference between them is the currency of denomination. So if an investor has some money in dollars already in their account and they needed to get a return, which is liquid, they can redeem in T+5 days, they can consider iDollar. And if they have shillings, they can consider iCash. And we have both solutions. And most investors, we recommend diversify into those two funds and not hold one or the other.
Thank you, Prof. John also asks, if I fill out the application form and set my investment goal amount, but later decide to add more during this initial stage, is there flexibility to do so, or will I need to add a separate account?
No,
No.
Join.
Welcome, Prof.
No, please, Samia, continue.
Hi, John. You are certainly allowed to do so during this period of IPO from which started on 8th up to 25th July. You can add as much funds as you want.
So John, we look forward to you adding more. Idris also asks, in the end of the slides, I noticed you discouraged people from converting dollars to T-shillings, then investing in the fund. Can you please expand on why?
We didn't discourage converting dollars to shillings. What we don't do is we don't do conversions ourselves. Whatever investors can want to do, investors have to go to the banking system. We do not deal with FX. We're not a bureau. We are not a bank. So we receive investment funds either in shillings into shilling funds or dollars into dollar funds. We do not take shillings into dollars or dollars into shillings. So investors are free. The laws in Tanzania and regulations allow them to buy whatever currency they want, but they will need to go to a bank that's licensed to do that service.
Thank you, Prof. Another question is, could you please clarify where the USD denominated asset classes will actually be invested?
In terms of investments, I think for USD, we are actually pioneering bonds, dollar-denominated bonds in the Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange. This is the first time we were able to receive approval from the Bank of Tanzania. The Bank of Tanzania allowed the first multi-currency bond to be issued. iTrust is also the transaction advisor for the sponsoring broker for CRDB Al Baraka Sukuk, which is launching sometime end of this month. And this is going to have a tranche with a dollar denomination. So it's the first time that Tanzanians and Tanzanian institutions will be able to invest. So we are going to be looking at that very closely. Also, the Zanzibar Sukuk had a dollar tranche. So there is also already was a bond in the market from the Zanzibar government, which was launched, I believe, in April. And that also is still is in the market and a potential investment. The other investments are usually around fixed deposits and call accounts. And we are continuously looking at other dollar denominated assets that we could find. We hope at some point the Tanzanian government will issue also Euro bonds and list those Euro bonds on the Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange. And iDollar will be a ready-made investor for the Tanzanian government sovereign Euro bonds.
Thank you, Prof. Idris, may you please clarify your question with regard to retirement? In the meantime, we're still accepting more questions in the chat. So please feel free to take this moment to ask us as many questions as possible. As Francis had mentioned, the IPO is closing on the 25th next week. So take this opportunity to find out more about this iDollar fund and invest while the initial opening is available. Idris, we see that you said my question got mostly answered. So if there's a part that we missed, please feel free to write in the chat and we will address it. Ali asks, if one does not have his own USD account, can he use next of kin account, or during withdrawal, can cash be provided?
I think very clearly we don't pay cash. All money is invested through an account will go back to the same account. And any account set up at iTrust has to match the account name and our onboarding KYC documents have to match. We can't have an account name of person A and an investment in the name of person B. That is not allowable by the regulators. It's contrary to the regulations. So in order for you to invest, you have to have your own dollar account, and whoever is the owner of that dollar account who provided the funding have to be the same person who will own the asset. Assets belong to who paid for them. So it's very important that that be clear. It's not normal for one person to use somebody else's account generally. And that's not something financial institutions normally do.
Thank you, Prof. John also would like to confirm, is the benchmark interest rate based on the bank's fixed deposit rate, which currently goes up to a maximum of 5%?
Yes, I think we're using the average provided by Bank of Tanzania. Bank of Tanzania surveys all the banks on their dollar denominated fixed deposits on different maturities. We take the 1 year maturity and we use that average as our benchmark. So as a fund managers, we want to outperform that benchmark. So to do better than the average, what the banks provide in terms of fixed deposits in dollar denominated assets. So that we get it directly from the Bank of Tanzania.
Thank you. What do you see to be the primary and core risk associated with the iDollar fund as it differs from other funds?
Well, iDollar is a very low it's a very low risk. It's a money market fund, which means it's buying very short term fixed income securities. So it doesn't have a lot the issues to do with long term, and it doesn't have. What are the kind of risks that can happen? Let me pick a few potential risks for an investor. One is a long period of depreciation in the US dollar. It's an extreme case, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities that the US dollar could remain a weak currency for a period of 3 or 4 or 5 years. So if you find a period where Tanzanian shilling is very stable and US dollar is not appreciating in any way, what happens is that your capital return, because being in dollars, you're going to be getting a yield of, let's say, 5%. While if you had invested in Tanzanian shillings, you may have been able to get, like iCash, maybe 12%. So that differential of 7%, you need to make it up from basically depreciation. If that doesn't come through and the US Tanzanian shilling USD rate is quite stable, then you actually will get a little bit. Now, that's not a direct risk. It's a risk of opportunity risk that you're still getting 5%, but you could have been able to get 12%. Now, has that happened? Yes. If you look at the period between 2016, 17 to almost 2021, the Tanzanian shilling was quite stable for about a 5-year period. So they are periodic, and then there are periods where iDollar will outperform significantly, mainly because we went from, let's say, an exchange rate of 2,300 to an exchange rate of, let's say, 2,750. So those period of major movements in currency, iDollar will outperform, and those period of stable exchange rates, iDollar will basically give you a lower return than, let's say, iCash. That's why we always recommend investors to have a balanced portfolio, to diversify, and to be able to get a solid return in any kind of environment. That is what diversification is for, to protect you as an investor from all sorts of market risks. Now, what other risks are there? There are not many long-term risks. There are a little bit of credit risk because we invest in bonds of corporations. The corporate bonds we are buying dollar denominated in Tanzania, the ones that have been approved are and they've been issued are now the government of Zanzibar for the Zanzibar Sukuk bond and CRDB, which is coming up, not yet in the market, and potentially other programs that are multi-currency programs, NMB and NBC. Now, those are extremely strong issuers, and we believe the credit risk is very, very low. Those are blue chip financial institutions in the country. So there is, of course, always going to be some level of credit risk, but we believe it's minimal for this kind of issuers. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that addressed the question regarding the downside risk. And then, can I invest 100 USD today and see my account 90 USD next week?
First of all, the minimum is $1,000. So $100 will be below the minimum, so you won't be able to invest. But suffice it to say, taking the same numbers, will you be able to invest $1,000 and see it at 900? No. Remember, money market instruments are fixed income instruments, so they accrue a gain, they accrue interest daily. So you're going to see your NAV basically going up every day. And because they are fixed income and they are mostly held to maturity, you're going to find that you have a positive return every day. However small it may be, you're going to have a positive return. And I just see somebody else asking, I believe Nathan asking about fees. I think the two questions are aligned because we deduct fees on daily basis also. And the fees are the management fee, which is 1% annual, and charge it on a daily basis. So every time we get a return, we have a little bit of deduction of the management fee. And also we have auditor fee, which is 0.1%, and we have a custodian trustee fee, which is also 0.1%. Those start accruing only when the funds have been invested. So we do not produce a negative NAV because we actually start having positive returns before fees can be charged. And once fees are start to be charged, you're going to see your fund appreciating because the returns are higher than the fees, obviously.
Thank you, Prof. Are the assets iDollar Fund invests in US denominated investments or USD pegged investments? Sorry, assets.
Yeah, I think these are USD denominated investments because they're being issued in that currency. They're not pegged because peg means that you have some kind of an adjusting mechanism between USD and Tanzanian shilling. So when you peg, the peg has to be stable. You have to have assets to back up a peg. So we are not pegging we're not buying any pegged assets. They're non-existing in Tanzania. So we are actually developing a whole new asset class of dollar-denominated bonds, which we are pioneering at iTrust, and we're really grateful to Bank of Tanzania for giving us approvals for Tanzanians to invest in those bonds, and for us to have iDollar fund that can also collect and collectively invest in those funds.
Thank you, Prof. Okay. Are the investments done in TZ only, or in the future, the investments will be done outside TZ?
I think for the iDollar, we've started it off as Tanzania focused because we really think that there are a lot of capital requirements in Tanzania that can give us a good return. If we had to do it outside Tanzania, as you know, Tanzanian capital account is still not fully open. So our foreign exchange regulation requires that if you are investing outside Tanzania, it be in the East Africa or SADC stock exchanges. So eventually we want to launch regional funds, and that is something that will be coming. Our investors can keep an eye out. We will provide them other options for them to invest in securities outside Tanzania. But iDollar, for the time being, we are focused on the Tanzanian capital markets.
Okay. What legal protections on how iTrust does its operation, or even how iDollar will be managed? Sorry.
I think
What
in terms
legal-
of this,
Sorry, Prof, may I please just read that again? What legal protections are in place for foreign currency investments in Tanzania? I apologize for that.
no, I think the in terms of the regulations, Tanzanians are allowed to hold foreign currency. They can have foreign currency accounts. As you know, any Tanzanian can go to the bank and open an account in dollars or in pounds or euros if your bank offers them. So those are legal. You can hold, you can invest, you can buy a fixed deposit, you can invest in iDollar fund, you can invest in anything. So those are in the regulations. And if at any point in time in the future the regulation changes, we'll try to comply with those regulations. But as far as today is concerned, you can freely invest your dollars as long as you have them in a bank account in Tanzania. They have been they've been properly KYC'd, and they are not subject to any other issues, and you can invest them. Now the protection from the fund, now that's a legal protection in terms of you owning assets in a foreign currency. But in terms of the iDollar itself, we have a trustee custodian, CRDB Bank, who actually hold all the security. So all the accounts of iDollar sit with CRDB Bank. CRDB is the custodian, and CRDB is also the trustee responsible to the unit holders. iTrust is the manager. So the job of iTrust is to identify securities to buy and make the day-to-day decisions and administrative task of onboarding you, issuing your units, redeeming your units, and everything else. But all the assets are held by the custodian, and it's the custodian who ensures that all the assets are registered in the name of the fund and in the interest of unit holders.
Thank you, Prof. Any ESG consideration on how iTrust does its operations, or even how iDollar will be managed?
Well, iDollar is just an investment vehicle, a collective investment vehicle. So iDollar doesn't do ESG. The company, the issuers themselves may have ESG considerations. But speaking of iTrust itself, we do have our own policy on ESG. For example, in the social side, we deal with capital market education to women. We have a WISE program that does that. We have considerations in terms of our environmental footprint, our lending. Those are issues we do consider at iTrust level, but the funds are just passed through collective investment schemes. They invest in bonds and other securities, and we don't have ESG consideration when we are making investment returns. As you are a unit holder, we want to maximize your returns to the best of our ability.
Okay. Idris is also wondering, if one is saving for long-term goals, example, retirement, is this a good fund for them compared to other funds offered?
I think it forms a part of your portfolio. I think anyone who's looking to towards their retirement decades down the road, you need to be diversified because market conditions could change dramatically. So, for example, if, for example, in the future there is a risk of changes in exchange rate, a big financial crisis, and suddenly US dollars appreciate a lot, having some part of your portfolio in US dollars will help you. At the same time, having your investments at a higher yielding securities in Tanzania, for example, our other funds like iSave, our other funds like iGrowth, over long term also is a very useful thing. As you can see from the performance right now on our NAV, which is a public information on our website, our funds that are balanced funds have really outperformed. Some of them are up, like Iman Fund, our Sharia compliant fund is up 33% or so. Our iGrowth fund is up, I think, in the high 20s. So it depends. My advice to anybody planning for retirement is don't put all your eggs in one basket. Diversify, buy some iGrowth, have some iDollar, have some iCash for your emergency funding. So when you're looking at your personal portfolio, bucket your portfolio according to the type of risks you want to protect yourself and build your nest egg. You want to protect your retirement savings. You want to make sure that your retirement is secured. So advice is always to allocate your portfolio in a way that maximizes your return, but also minimizes your risks. That means diversifying. So buy some of each of these funds and you are going to protect yourself against different kind of risks. iDollar protects you against exchange risks, for example. iCash gives you emergency, low fee, very safe asset in Tanzanian shilling. iGrowth gives you upside of equities, and iSave gives you the stability of bonds. So you can actually build your portfolio on our funds. We have 6 funds now, and you can build a very nice diversified portfolio for yourself just by mixing and matching the weights in our different funds.
Thank you. Nathan, we encourage you to ask questions, so please, no apologies. Ask as many questions as you would like. But he also asks, how long does it take to redeem funds and receive payout?
Yeah, so
T+5. Yeah.
sorry,
Continue.
bro.
Continue.
Yeah,
Continue,
so
please.
it just takes 5 working days from the day you give us instructions. After 5 working days, you get your money in your bank account.
Okay, I think you had asked to redeem funds, so that is for the iDollar.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
for the iDollar, yeah.
and then for the other funds?
Okay, for the other funds, it's the same. The difference is just 3 working days for the other funds, but for iDollar, it's 5 working days.
Yeah, just to add one more point there is a lockup period. Maybe Francis, you can speak about that also.
Yes. Yeah, so for the iDollar fund, there is a lock-in period of 90 days. The lock-in period is basically 90 days from your first investment. For those who invest in the IPO, the 90 days begin from the end of the IPO. So from 25th July plus 90 days to be somewhere on 23rd October 2025. But for those who put in their first investment after the IPO, let's say somewhere around November, it will be 90 days after that date. That's when they'll be able to start redeeming the investment.
Yeah, I think maybe we explain to the investors why we have a lockup period. The other funds don't have a lockup period. The reason is because we're investing in dollar-denominated assets. The liquidity of those assets are still in infancy. So there is not as much liquidity. So that is why we have this. We can't use iDollar as an in and out. You put in some money today, a week later you are out, because we are investing in securities that may not be as liquid. And because of that liquidity risk potential, we have a lockup period. But I can assure you our lockup period of 90 days is much, much shorter than, for example, when you do a fixed deposit in a bank where you're locking up for a whole year. So after 90 days, you have access, you need to fill out a redemption form, and you get your funds within 5 working days.
Okay. John would like to know, apart from the Zanzibar Sukuk bond and the upcoming issuance by CRDB Bank, which sectors or regions does the fund plan to focus for future diversification?
I think our main opportunity is going to be around now Tanzanian financial institutions, Tanzanian corporates issuing multi-currency bonds, issuing tranches which are shilling and dollars. So a lot of companies that can benefit from issuing a dollar are going to be those in mining sector. They can issue bonds in dollars. Those which are in, for example, other sectors like tourism, those who require basically to import things in dollars, for example, including even the petroleum companies who import petroleum products in dollars, who need access to dollars. They can borrow those dollars directly in the capital markets rather than, let's say, through the banking system. So those are opportunities that are there. We may see more issuers come to the bond market as they see the opportunity of Tanzanians who have dollar-denominated securities or funds like iDollar able to invest in those bonds. So yes, there is going to be some opportunities, but as I did mention, we are unique in the sense that we are pioneers in this space, and we are going to keep our investors abreast. All our investors, we do a investor call quarterly. So every quarter, you are going to get a call where we will explain what is happening to each of the funds in the iFunds family. Also, we produce a monthly fact sheet, which is emailed to all investors to tell you what is going on with the funds so that you can keep track of the performance. And on a daily basis, you can see on our website our NAVs and AUMs. So the AUM being the assets under management, how big the fund is, and NAV being the price or net asset value for each unit. So we do inform our investors, and I want to assure you that you'll be getting constant information from us. Please don't get tired of our emails.
Thank
I
you,
see,
Prof.
Winnie, you're smiling because we do send out a
Yes.
lot of information. We want to be transparent as much as possible to our investors.
Yes, we try to make sure that our investors are informed about all the decisions, all of the happenings within iTrust, to ensure that we do uphold the transparency that we want to convey. We still have some minutes left, so we do encourage people to ask questions. We will prepare the FAQs and post them on our social media as well for easy access. So in case you have any other questions, you can look at the FAQs. Please feel free to reach out to our customer service team as well. And reach out to us on social media, email us for any questions that you might have, so that we make sure that this additional fund is accepted as smoothly or as easily as possible. Idris would like to know that I recently filled the sign up sheet and will submit soon. Is there a grace period or deadline when a client can keep money into the fund? Much of my dollars are tied up, so it might take time to free them up to invest.
Yeah, Idris, I think that's a good question. The IPO period is not the end. The IPO period is just the initial sales period. So the initial sales period is going to close next week, Friday, after which we will have a short period of what we call a cool off, where we do all the regulatory setup issues with and get approvals of CMSA. But after that, the fund will be open daily. You can start putting in money once we reopen for normal operations, and we will definitely let you know. So even if you did a smaller amount now during the initial sell period, you can do as your funds come in and you have the resources to invest, you can feel free that you can put in the money at that point in time. So every day our other funds are now open daily. Every day they are taking in subscriptions. So you can be able to subscribe more. This is the advantage of a fund. After you are doing the first 1,000, you can put in as low as $100 subsequently. So you can put in any amount you want, and subject to the lockup period, you can also redeem T+5 at the end of your lockup.
Thank you, Prof. Joan would like clarification on the statement about the iDollar fund benchmark, which states investors should be aware that investing in the fund is not the same as placing money in a deposit account. The capital and returns of the fund are not guaranteed, and there are risks involved. Therefore, the risk profile of the fund is different from that of a deposit. The fund carries a higher level of risk than a bank deposit.
Yes. I think that's a very important statement. Joan, that's a really good question that you noted that. Basically, the fund is an investment opposite to a deposit. Legally speaking, a deposit at the bank is practically a loan to the bank. It is secured on the balance sheet of the bank, and the bank is supposed to pay you depending on the term of that deposit. So if the deposit is a current account, you can make a call on your money at any time. That is different from a fund. A fund actually takes your money and invests it. The investments are still owned by you. So think of the fund as an investment. So when the fund invests your money, is buying securities, and those securities do contain, for example, credit risk, price risk if they're trading in the market, and those price risk and credit risk can go up and down. To give you a good example, a fixed income fund like iDollar may not be the best to show you this. The best fund will be something like iGrowth. iGrowth contains stocks, shares. For example, shares of CRDB, shares of NNB, shares of Twiga Cement. Those shares every day of the Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange can be going up or down. When they go up and down, the NAV, the price of the fund, the value of the assets in the fund divided by the number of units can go up and down. That is why you see here telling you that to be aware that the difference between placing money. When you place money on deposits, what you're actually doing is you have lent the bank. So if it is a fixed deposit, you will have agreed a rate, which is fixed, and a period, which is fixed. The fund doesn't have a period. It's constantly buying new assets. It's constantly selling assets sometimes. It's constantly getting new money. It's constantly investing in different securities. It's constantly getting different rates. That's why we can't tell you in advance what the rate is going to be, because sometimes it depends on the investment opportunities we will get. When the fund receives coupons, when it receives returns, or when it sells a security, the fund looks around in the market and buys new securities. Those new securities can have a higher rate or lower rate. So the fund's performance is something that could change slightly, but at least it could change even on daily basis, depending on the market conditions. Therefore, you need to be very understanding of the fact you are making an investment. Now that comes with risks, yes, but it does also come with return enhancement in the sense that if market conditions are better, you're getting a higher return. While if you are fixed in a fixed deposit, you get the same return irrespective of what the interest rates are in the marketplace. So it's very important that when you're forming how much to invest in the funds and your portfolio overall decisions, pay attention to this disclaimer, this warning here, that the investors should be aware that the funds are actually investments. and they do have a volatility to a certain degree. Now, most funds which are fixed income are going to be very, very stable by nature because they're just accruing interest. They're investing in bonds which are fixed already. But most funds which are balanced funds or equity funds, they can be a lot more volatile. That's why we term some funds like money markets as low risk and some funds as medium risk. Let's say the balanced funds are medium risk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Johanna Mushi would like the contact number in person for iDollar Fund. We encourage you to get the phone number that is currently displayed on the screen together with the email. You can also scan to get our website information, or rather to go to our website. And please feel free to also visit us. There is our address. We are located in Masaki. And also please follow us on all of our social media platforms to stay up to date on everything that is iTrust Finance.
I'd like to thank Nathan here. He said something really very thankful for.
Yes. Nathan says, I personally appreciate all your customer service, excellence, and professionalism. Very well done. Keep up the spirit. Great competition in the market. Your presence causes a great upside in the market.
Thank you, Nathan.
We didn't want to toot our horn so much, but yes, that's the comment. I guess we had to read it. That being said, we appreciate everyone for logging into the session. We'll just wait for James to see if he has a question. As we still have a minute or two. Okay, okay. Yes, James, all of our webinars will be posted on our YouTube page. Yes, for James and Lucas. So we will post these next week, Monday. So please check the webinars on our YouTube page and feel free to comment, again, ask questions through our social media, through our customer service, email and phone number. And before we end, last question from John. Is the return affected by USD T shillings fluctuations, or are the returns strictly in dollars?
They are in dollars, even though we do have an element of multi-currency. So there potentially could be effects, but we don't think they're going to be marginal because most of the allocation, the reason we have multi-currency and a portion of investment in maybe Tanzanian shilling is because, remember, by the laws of the country now, according to the foreign exchange regulations of 2025, we have to bill all fees in Tanzanian shilling. So the fees billed to the management fee, the auditor's fee, the trustee custodian fee have to be in Tanzanian shillings. And so we have to have some amount of Tanzanian shillings to pay those fees, but that's going to be very marginal. With the exception that if it happens that we have a more significant investments because we are denominated in dollars, those are going to be hedged and those could also enhance returns. So we are definitely going to have some effect, but it's not going to be significant per se. It's mostly our focus is on dollar assets, and that is going to be 70 to 100% of the portfolio will be on dollar assets.
Thank you very much, Prof. I'd like to take this moment to thank everyone who tuned in to our webinar. Again, as I mentioned, please look for it on our YouTube page next week. It should be available, but in case you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to the team and we will assist you accordingly. That being said, thank you so much and have a great evening.